Most people watch MMA for fun, but me and you, this weekend, are gonna watch it and get paid. The UFC is back in good old Canada, and we're gonna make some money on this card, boys. In this video, I'm gonna go through the entire fight card with you, giving you my betting breakdown and predictions for every single fight on this card. Welcome to the official UFC Winnipeg edition of the lucrative MMA betting show. And this week, we have Canada's own Mike Malott taking on Gilbert Burns in a fight where Mike Malott is damn near the biggest favorite he has ever been in the UFC, arguably fighting the best fighter he's ever fought. But is Gilbert Burns still the same fighter that we have come to know and love, or is he completely washed, and will he look like a plus 500 underdog this weekend? We have Canada's own Charles Jourdain in the co-main event as well. He is taking on Phillips, the Matrix. That's a great 3-round fight, boys. I feel like Phillips and Charles Jourdain are going to go to war in that one. We have Canada's own, again, Jasmine Jasudavicius on this card, trying to bounce back from one of her only losses in recent years against Manon Ferro. Karine Silva is the woman she is taking on, who is a very formidable force herself, trying to bounce back to one of the only losses she took in her recent career, which was against Maycee Barber last time out. We have Mandel, Nallo, the guy who came on a Contender Series with an absolute bang, taking on, speaking of bang, the Black Country banger himself, Herbert, making a long trip all the way from England to Canada to try and spoil the party in Mando Nallo's hometown. I'm going to break down all of those fights for you, boys, and every other fight on the card. There's more bangers than that, so let's not waste any more time. Run the intro, and I'll see you on the other side. So welcome back to another edition of the show, boys. 2026 is officially in full gear. We have just finished Q1, the first 3 months of the year. We have 3 quarters of the year left, 75% of the year left, and I'm very excited to break down not only this card, but every single fight for the rest of the year. We have some good fights upcoming, boys. We have Ilia Topuria taking on Justin Gaethje in a couple of weeks, a couple of months at the White House card. Freedom 250, not too far away, just around the corner, is perhaps the best fight that has been booked this year. Maybe Carlos Prates is taking on Jack Della Maddalena, so I can't wait to break down all of those fights, boys, but more importantly, make money on all of those fights. And that's exactly what we're going to try and do for the rest of the year, but more specifically today. And if you appreciate me trying to help you make money with these cards every week, then please go click the like button and the subscribe button. It's the easy and free way to show me that you appreciate me trying to put money in your pocket. We're not going to win every week, boys. We will have some loss streaks. We will have win streaks as well, though. So very excited, very hungry to get into this fight card. So without further ado, boys, we're going to break down the first fight, or the last fight of the night, the main event, the first fight I'm going to break down, which is Mike Malott taking on Gilbert Burns. So in this matchup, currently they have Mike Malott as the minus 600 favorite. As I mentioned in the intro, one of the biggest favorites he's ever been. In fact, it may be the biggest favorite he's ever been in the UFC. And he is facing off against Gilbert Burns, who is currently sitting as a plus 425 underdog. The records for these fighters: Mike Malott has a record of 13 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Gilbert Burns, on the other hand, 22 wins and 9 losses. So double the amount of fights for Gilbert Burns over Mike Malott here. So let's talk about this one, guys. The first thing that stands out to me, and if you've been watching me long enough, you know that oftentimes during my breakdowns, before I even go into the breakdown, I will tell you the first thing that stands out to me. Because I've been doing this for a long time, boys. You know, I've been sports betting for 15 years now. That's a long time. And I've been betting on MMA consistently for 10 years, every single week, right? So oftentimes what I have found is that the thing that first sticks out to me is oftentimes the truth. You know, not all of the time. And that's why I do tape study to confirm it. But a lot of times it turns out to be something that I should pay more attention to. And the first thing that stood out to me before I did tape on this is, why is Mike Malott a minus 600 favorite? That's a massive, massive price tag. And look, boys, sometimes I feel that about a fighter and then I watch tape and then I'm like, okay, this fighter deserves to be minus 600 or a big favorite. But I did do tape on this one, as I do every fight, every week. And I don't think he deserves to be a minus 600 favorite. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I have not been a Mike Malott believer since he entered the UFC. And he has proved me wrong in every single fight except for one. I've bet against Mike Malott in almost every single fight, and I've lost almost every single time, except for when I won with my bet on Neil Magny. That was one of my biggest bets ever at the time, and one of my biggest cashes ever at the time. I won over $70,000 on Neil Magny alone because I bet on him to win. He was a massive underdog. I also bet on him to win in round 3. And it's funny because I've actually won more money on Mike Malott fights than I've lost, but I've only won one time on one fight, and I've lost 6 times. Imagine that, boys. I've tried to fade him 7 times. I've lost 6 times, right? I've won 1 time, and I've won more money on Mike Malott fights than I've lost. That is the power of underdogs. That is the power of prop betting if you get it right. And that is the power of plus EV sports betting. You can lose 90% of the time and still make massive money because the one time you was right was the most important time with the biggest odds, right? So although I've won money on Mike Malott, I'm not the best reader of his fights. I'm actually one of the worst readers of his fights because I always get his fights wrong, except for that one time, right? So although I'm in profit, I wouldn't look to me and say, yeah, let me listen to James every time Mike Malott fights. I would listen to someone else, one of these other predictors on YouTube. My man Dan Half the Battle, he's a great one. There's lots of others out there as well. I won't name them all because they're going to get annoyed if I don't mention them. Instagram as well. There's good people on Instagram giving out good information. Maybe they're going to have a better take than me on Mike Malott. I do think the line is completely wide again, as I do every single time Mike Malott fights. Now, let's be real. I've picked Mike Malott to win a lot of these fights, but I still bet against him. And that's because I'm always betting against him at like plus 200 odds. I picked him to beat Joanne Lioness and Trevin Giles, but they were plus 250 odds, so I bet on them, So it's not like I can't pick his fights, but betting on his fights is a different thing. The reason I haven't been that high on him, and I'll go into the technical breakdown now, is because Mike Malott seems to me, from the start, to be a bit more of an athlete than a fighter. And I say that with no disrespect. What I mean is, what I have seen is that when the going gets tough, I don't love his body language. I don't love the way he reacts to shots, even in wins. Now, he's proved me wrong. Not even wrong, but he's proved that he is a fighter. On many occasions. I still will say that when the going gets tough, I'm not 100% sure that I want to have a bet on someone like Mike Malott. We did see it come to fruition in the Neil Magny fight, something I had been saying for years before that, which is that Mike Malott could crumble under pressure. It did come to fruition. He did crumble under pressure. And honestly, that Neil Magny loss, probably one of the worst capitulations we've ever seen in the UFC, where a fighter is winning the fight clearly, and the first sign of adversity, he just completely crumbles and actually gets finished there. So I still feel like that's in him somewhere. But at the same time, he gets bloodied up every single fight. He bleeds from his nose. His nose seems to shatter every single fight, and he pushes through most fights, right? So he's definitely a real fighter. I still think that when the going gets tough in the later rounds, he may look for the door, or he may not want to be in there as much as he does in round 1 and round 2. And that's kind of what I feel about this fight, boys. I mean, if Gilbert Burns has enough in the tank at the age he's at now, 39 years old, in the welterweight division, which is very old, to push through after 2 rounds, I think he can win the fight. If he can weather the storm for 10 minutes, I think he can win the fight at the back end of the fight. Rounds 3, rounds 4, round 5. I definitely think it's possible, but it's hard to trust Gilbert to do that at 39 years old. But he has so much more experience doing that. I'd probably favor Gilbert Burns' cardio even now. Maybe. It's tough to say. 39 years old having a better cardio than Mike Malott in his prime is really a tough thing to say. But I think it's close. It's probably 50-50 if not. And Gilbert Burns has been there, done it, and pushed through in much harder scenarios. And at the end of the day, Gilbert Burns is a much higher level fighter than Mike Malott prime for prime, So it's just how far has Gilbert Burns come down from the cliff. And boys, I'm not saying that Gilbert Burns is my outright pick for this fight. That's another conversation. I don't really care about that conversation. As I say every single week, boys, picks are not bets. They're completely different things. And to win money over the long term, not the short term, because if you pick winners, maybe you'll win on a card, or maybe you'll win for a few weeks, because that does happen where the big favorites, the ones who are clearly going to win for a good few weeks. It happens, right? Win streaks, loss streaks with favorites, with the people that are supposed to win, etc. That does happen. But over the long term, if you really want to profit in sports betting, you cannot bet on who you pick, boys. You need to bet on where the value is, whether you pick them or not. And that's just point blank, period. That's how every sports bettor since the dawn of time has managed to build their empire and make a living from sports betting. So when I look at this fight, I'm not looking at it from a pure pick lens. I'll give you that at the end because people want to know that, because they no matter how many times I say it, they just ignore me and bet on picks, which you're never going to win long term. You can win short term. You're never going to win long term. I'm trying to give as much value as possible. Some people are going to listen, some people are not. That's the way of the world. It is what it is. And I honestly feel like Gilbert Burns should not be this big of an underdog. It's a silly price in my opinion. Yes, he got blasted out by Michael Morales. Yes, he's on a 4-fight losing streak. But let's speak about those losses for a minute. So the one I mentioned was Michael Morales. I mean, at the end of the day, boys, Michael Morales is on a rocket ship to the championship belt. You know, I mean, if that guy fought Islam Makhachev, I think there's a chance he would win that fight. And Islam is one of the greatest fighters in the sport's history. At this point, you know, winning a double belt could even be surpassing Khabib in the GOAT status, especially if he beats someone like Ilia Topuria or even Michael Morales in the near future. Maybe that's not on my ranking, but, you know, MMA community rankings, he's one of the greatest fighters to ever touch the sport, you know? So if I'm saying that Michael Morales has a chance to beat him, I mean, it makes no difference whether he knocked out Gilbert Burns or not. He's done that to almost everybody in the division. Michael Morales is an absolute beast, and he's only getting better fight to fight. That was based on pure size, pure athleticism, and pure power, which Mike Malott does not have at all. I mean, imagine Mike Malott versus Michael Morales. You know, Michael Morales will walk through him after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes. So I think that Gilbert Burns is being a little bit disrespected because of the recent run. Outside of the Michael Morales fight, what fights did he lose? Sean Brady, who just got beat by Michael Morales in a fight that was lined about a pick'em, in a fight that is basically going to choose who the next title contender is. Sean Brady just beat Leon Edwards, the previous champion in the division, and Sean Brady could not grapple against Gilbert Burns. He was able to outstrike him. Maybe it's not a great look, but Sean Brady's one of the best in the division. Let's be real. I know he lost recently against Michael, but he's one of the best in the division. And, you know, he couldn't really grapple Gilbert Burns in that fight consistently, which was a good sign of Gilbert Burns' defensive wrestling, which we will speak about in the context of this fight very shortly. Outside of that, you know, he lost against Belal Muhammad, but he had a bad injury going into that fight. You clearly saw it in the fight. And Belal Muhammad, again, champion, you know, a champion in this division up until just a couple of years ago. What's the other loss in that loss streak? It's Jack Della Maddalena, a champion in this division up until last year when Islam beat him. You know, and he was actually beating Jack Della Maddalena up until he lost, you know, and that was round 3, and that was a great flying knee, and, you know, it is what it is, but Gilbert Burns was looking good in that fight. So I feel like there should be some context put on those losses, and that's what's making him minus 600 here. You know, if he had beat Jack Della Maddalena, he would not be minus 600 here, even if all of those other losses still happen. You know, he'd probably be like, Mike Malott would probably be like minus 200 or something, honestly. If he had beat Jack Della Maddalena 2 fights ago and only lost to Brady and Morales, you really think that Mike would be minus 600? He wouldn't, right? And okay, he didn't lose. I mean, he didn't beat Jack, but he almost did. I mean, nothing really changed. I mean, we saw the fight play out. Jack landed a great shot and he knocked him out. Well done. But I mean, Gilbert competed well in that fight. I just think the line's crazy, boys. When we speak about the technical matchup, yes, I think Mike Malott's a much better striker. I truly believe that, you know, but I don't know if he's as durable. Maybe Gilbert's durability is declining now. You know, someone said that to me the other day, but then why do you think that is? Why? Because he got knocked out by Jack Della? Because he got knocked out by Michael Morales? I mean, 2 of the greatest finishers in the division. One was a champion. I mean, I don't think his durability shot, to be honest. He seems like a very durable guy still. You know, he was one of the only guys ever to take Khamzat to decision. I think outside of Dricus du Plessis, yeah. He was the only guy to take Khamzat to decision. That was a long time ago, but Gilbert Burns is a durable guy. He's always been a durable guy. I think he's still a durable guy. Mike Malott could catch him because he's a very slick striker, very good counter hooks. He's just a great striker, good range control. I misjudged him to some degree. He's a much better striker, and I actually think he's improved since he came into the UFC, which is surprising because he was quite old when he came in. But I don't think like he's minus 600 better, you know, especially in the context of a 5-round fight. We have to remember this is 5 rounds, boys. So it's entirely possible that Gilbert Burns gets outclassed for 2 rounds and then Mike Malott slows down like he's done in most fights that he's ever had that have gone late, that have pushed a mild pace, and Gilbert Burns starts to take over, starts to land his 1-2. I think Gilbert Burns potentially hits harder with his hands on the feet. Yes, Mike Malott has had some knockouts, but it's more like clean, accurate punches that knock his opponent out rather than real power. You know, I think Gilbert Burns probably has more power, even coming up from the lightweight division back in the day, which Mike Malott also did. By the way, he was a featherweight at one point, I believe. So, yeah, I feel like Gilbert Burns has the power advantage. He has definitely the veteran advantage. Like, he's been there, done that a lot more than Mike Malott, so he's going to be able to manage his cardiovascular system better than Mike, in my opinion. And we speak about the grappling. Gilbert Burns is a better grappler than Mike Malott. You know, I'll be very surprised if Mike Malott is able to get his submission game, which he's very, very good submission artist, extremely fast submissions, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I also don't think he's going to be able to wrestle Gilbert consistently. Is he going to be able to take him down once or twice? He probably will. He's a big guy. He's young. He's athletic. He's strong. He's in his prime. Gilbert is old. Yes, he could take him down once or twice, but he's going to tire himself out if he does, just like he did to Neil Magny. So I actually don't think he should take down. I think he should try and stay on the outside and either clip Gilbert with a great counter or just stay on the outside for 5 rounds and hope that Gilbert doesn't engage in grappling, because if he does, I feel like Mike's going to get tired. I don't think Mike is built for those grappling wars. I really don't. I think he likes a pretty fight on the outside. I think if it gets ugly in the grappling or the striking, he starts to crumble a little bit. And in my opinion, Gilbert Burns has the skill set to make it dirty and make him crumble. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it at 39 years old. But that's my take on the fight, boys. I think Mike Malott's going to win the fight as a pure pick. So if you're here for that, there you go. Mike Malott minus 600. Surprise, surprise. The pure pick. But I really think Gilbert Burns has a chance to win this fight. Gilbert Burns said in one of his interviews when I was doing my research for this fight that he had a really bad concussion after the Morales fight. He also mentioned having a concussion after the Jack Della fight, but not as bad as the Morales fight. So we have to factor that in, that he's had a concussion now 2 out of his last 3 fights, and he's getting older. So that could point to some of his durability falling. I mean, having concussions multiple times in recent years in, 66% of your fights, the last 3 fights anyway, 2 out of the last 3, it could point to that. He's getting older. His brain, his skull, his body isn't able to absorb as much punishment as it once was. And now he's getting concussed with shots that he probably wouldn't have got concussed with years ago. So, I could see Mike Malott catching him in the first 2 rounds here. I mean, that's a big possibility, right? Mike Malott inside the distance in rounds 1 or rounds 2. That's a big, big possibility. And at minus 600, you would expect that to happen. Right? That's what minus 600s are meant to go out there and do. You don't want to see this fight going into round 3, 4, and 5 if you're betting on Mike Malott on minus 600. And if you're betting on him at minus 600, you surely don't believe the fight's going to go into 3, 4, and 5. You surely believe he's going to erase him in round 2. And that is a possibility here. But I think if Gilbert can avoid being erased early, I think he can start to wear on him in the later rounds. If that's enough for a finish or for a win, I don't know. But I'm going to take Gilbert Burns here. I mean, look, I did say the pure pick is Mike Malott because I have to be honest with you. But when I say take Gilbert Burns, I don't give a fuck about the pure pick, So when I say I take Gilbert Burns, it's like I'm saying Gilbert Burns is the money line side here. And I'm saying it confidently, boys, right? This isn't like a 50-50. No, I'm saying confidently this is the money line side. This is where the value is, right? Yes, okay, gun to my head. If someone put a gun to my head, I'd have to say, I'm going to shoot you if you get this wrong. I'd have to probably say Mike Malott wins the fight. But even then, it's a close one. I honestly feel like this line is absolutely crazy. I'm going to say Gilbert Burns gets the upset here. And that's because I'm a sports bettor, If I was a pure analyst, I'd say Mike Malott, but the fight could be close. But I'm not. I'm a sports bettor, and I think that Gilbert Burns is the value side here. I think he can get it done late. I'm very excited to see this fight. War Gilbert Burns. Next up in the co-main event, we have Kyler Phillips, the Matrix, taking on Charles Air Jourdain. We have Kyler Phillips coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins, 4 losses. Charles Jourdain, 17 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw. So a very eclectic record there for Mr. Jourdain. Currently, they have Charles Jourdain as the minus 155 favorite in this bout, with the underdog price tag on Kyler Phillips sitting at plus 135 odds. This one is a fantastic fight, boys. Honestly, one of the best fights on the card. I'm not surprised that it's co-main, or currently in Tapology order, it's co-main. Maybe they change it. I don't know. Tapology changes things all the time. I know that because I record these videos for you really early. So, you get early breakdowns, which I know a lot of people love. But when I do that, I notice that Tapology move the fights around all the time. And the UFC in general sometimes haven't even got the bout order up until fight week. And I'm recording this way before fight week. So currently it's the co-main event. Probably it will be. I mean, this is a big fight. Charles Jourdain is definitely a big star in Canada, or star for Canadian MMA, especially now dropping down in weight, finishing his last 2 opponents. He's got something about him. He's got some swagger about him in this new weight class. And I'm very excited to see how far he can go. Charles Jourdain done well in the featherweight division to some degree. He also had some poor losses, I think. He had some poor performances, I should say. But he's looked good at 135. He looks like he suits 135. 135. He seems to make the weight pretty well. And like I said, his last 2 fights have been good, but they haven't been to the level of competition that someone like Kyler Phillips has been facing, and they're not to the level of competition of Kyler Phillips himself. So this is a big step up in competition. Make no mistake about it. Going from Davy Grant at 41, 40 years of age to Kyler Phillips in his prime to some degree. Or maybe a couple of years ago was his prime, but he's probably his prime now as it was a couple of years ago. I just feel like we've kind of seen the style of Kyler Phillips play out now, and the blueprint on how to beat him is there. Whereas, when he came into the UFC, fought people like Jourdain and got the win. Amazing win. The blueprint wasn't really there to beat him outside of the Victor Henry fight. To be honest, he did lay that blueprint, so I can say I'm wrong there. But maybe in the UFC, the blueprint wasn't really laid. So we know what Kyler's level is. We know what type of fighter he is. And we know what type of fighter Charles Jourdain is. So I like breaking these fights down because both fighters have shown who they are. I know both fighters very well. None of them are washed. They're both in their prime to some degree, at least close to it. So we can expect what we've always expected from them. When I break down a fight like Gilbert Burns and Mike Malott, and I say Gilbert Burns' odds are crazy, I'm relying on Gilbert Burns at 39 years old to not be washed. And that's really hard to do. I don't really love breaking down those fights because it's basically a guess on how washed they are, especially when they've been fighting the best level and then they're taking a big step down. It's like, how washed was they really? You don't really know because they've been fighting the best level of competition. Now they're taking a step down. Are they still going to continue to be washed? Or does that step down in competition make them seem not washed? You know what I mean? Whereas this fight, this is prime for prime. Like, we know what we're going to get. And what we're going to get is this, boys. Kyler Phillips is going to start hot. He's going to come in there and the Matrix is going to show out in round 1. He's going to throw spinning wheel kicks to the head that come very close but probably don't land. He's going to throw some kicks that maybe do land but get blocked. Maybe he lands a spinning back kick knockout. Probably not. Charles is very tough. He'll land some great spinning shit, elbows, back fists, kicks to the body. Very, very good high kicks, extremely fast, switch kick, good in and out punches, and just overall a great game in round 1 for MMA. One of the best one-round fighters in MMA. He really is. If MMA fights were 1 round, I think Kyler Phillips would be champion. I honestly do. I think Kyler Phillips would be champion of the bantamweight division. He would have beat Merab Dvalishvili. He would beat Peter Yan. He would beat Sean O'Malley. He would beat all of these fighters. He is the best one-round fighter in that division, in my opinion. He's so good in round 1. But he uses a lot of energy in round 1. That's why he's so good. And then he gets tired. So, there's going to be the MMA nerds and aficionados like myself who say, actually, no, because if there was only 1 round in MMA, the other fighters would also use all their skills and all their cardio. And Peter Yan would not download data, so he would be champ. So, all right, calm down, guys. What I'm trying to say is Kyler Phillips is a beast in round 1. And I think he's going to be a beast in round 1 against Charles Jourdain. That's the whole point I'm trying to drive home now. I think he wins round 1 clearly against Charles Jourdain. But what happens in round 2 and round 3 is going to decide the fight. I'm very confident Charles Jourdain wins round 3, maybe even finishes. I'm very confident Kyler Phillips wins round 1 and that he doesn't finish. So there's a bit of a lean to Charles there. And I feel like round 2, the middle round, is where it's going to be decided. And I can say that with extreme confidence because that has been what has happened in Kyler's entire UFC run. We go back to the fight in his last few against Rob Font. He won round 1 there. He grappled him. He looked great in round 1. He was a domination, right? But he got very tired in round 1. He got tired from doing nothing, which was actually one of his poorest performances. He got tired the earliest he's ever done. He looked completely gassed at the end of the first round. Usually it's the second round where it really starts to get gassed, so I don't know what happened there because it wasn't even a high pace. He kind of just grappled him. But that was very strange. That was a bad look. That's why I bet on Vinicius Oliveira against Kyler Phillips. I'm pretty sure I did anyway. And then the same thing happened to some degree in the Vinicius Oliveira fight, just where he got tired down the stretch. So I think Charles Jourdain's game plan should be to pressure Kyler here, but he needs to be careful in round 1 because if you pressure Kyler, he's going to land some big shots on you. I never forget Jourdain trying to pressure him in round 1 and getting hit with a massive head kick. I believe that was in round 1. He definitely got hit with some big shots. So, I'm interested to see Charles's game plan because Charles is historically not the guy who does pressure. And if he doesn't do that, this is going to be a 50-50, 29-28 fight. I'm telling you that right now because he historically doesn't pressure. If he doesn't pressure, he's going to do what he always does, which is have a big round 3. I mean, Charles Jourdain in round 3 is an absolute beast. Charles Jourdain to win in round 3 is always a good bet. And I may even play it here. In fact, this might be the bet to play because I could even see Kyler winning round 1 clearly, getting tired, but still winning round 2, edging it out in a very close fight where Charles starts to close the distance in the later stages of round 2, but he's already lost the first 3-4 minutes. The judges just about give it to him. Maybe majority, 2 out of 3 judges give it to him, despite Charles landing some big shots at the end of round 2, something like that. And then he's 2-0 up going into round 3, Kyler, but he's completely gassed and Charles finishes him in round 3, becomes the first man to finish him. Now, I will say that despite Kyler getting gassed out in almost every fight, he still doesn't get finished, so he's very, very tough. So it's hard to predict the finish. But I think if anyone was going to finish Kyler in round 3, Charles Jourdain may be the man to do it. So that's going to actually be my official prediction. Charles Jourdain to win this fight in round 3. But talking about value and the money line side, this is very hard for me, boys. This is a lot harder than Gilbert Burns Mike Malott, even though Gilbert Burns Mike Malott was a much wider line. It should be easy for me to say who's going to win that fight, but it wasn't, just because I think the line is so crazy, and I'm a sports bettor, I always speak about the lines. This one is tough. Like, I can see bets on both sides. I can understand a bet on Kyler at plus 135 because he's almost a shoo-in to win round 1, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of the market's opinion. And so you only have to win another round out of the 3 to win the fight and not get finished. And he's never been finished before, ever in his career. And he's fought some really high-level fighters like Vinicius Oliveira, Yudong Song, Victor Henry, if you want to throw him in there, and Rob Font, So to predict Jourdain finish him is kind of a hot take, right? So I understand the bet on him for that reason. But I also understand the bet on Charles Jourdain because he's almost guaranteed to win round 3, right? And he's a lot more likely to finish in round 3 than Kyler's guaranteed round. When I say guaranteed, pinch of salt, as always, we know that, right? So he's more likely to finish. So he's got more finishing upside, right? And then it comes down to round 2, but judges score the end of round more. So you expect Charles to be doing better at the end of round 2. So you kind of lean Charles for that degree, and also the third round finishing upside. And I feel like, trajectory-wise, Charles is a bit more confident. I watched a video of him, a sparring video. This is some narrative for you. He was getting taken down multiple times in a sparring on his YouTube. But he did say at the start of that video, boys, I still aspire to be UFC champion at bantamweight. I don't think Kyler Phillips aspires to that. So these little things matter, the belief, the self-belief, the career trajectory. You lean that way for Charles. So I can understand a Charles bet as well. So it's really hard. It's really hard for me to say who's the money line side. What I am going to say is I pick Charles Jourdain to win this fight. I pick him to win this fight via finish in round 3, which, yes, is a hot take. Most likely it goes to decision, but that is my prediction. And that's really it, boys. I'm going to pick Charles Jourdain to win the fight. And we'll move on to the next fight. Next up, women's MMA action as we have Jasudavicius taking on Karine Silva. Very good fight here. Jasudavicius coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 4 losses. Karine Silva, on the other hand, 19 wins and 6 losses. So semi-similar record for these two girls. Not similar odds, though. Jasudavicius in our hometown of Canada is a massive minus 300 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Karine Silva sitting at plus 250 odds. This is a banger, boys. I'll always love Jasudavicius. We have some history. Jasmine won me a lot of money, a lot of times. I was backing her at underdog price tags against people like Gabriela Fernandez back in the day at plus 110. I was also betting against her when Natalia Silva made her debut at plus 200. I think Jasmine actually goes down as one of the fighters I've made the most money on ever. And I actually contacted her once many, many years ago, probably like 4 years ago. And I don't know if I've spoken publicly about this. I don't think I have, but I contacted her a long time ago and I said, look, you won me a lot of money. Can I send you some of the money? Just to say thanks, basically. And she said, I said, I can do that, or I can just donate it to a charity of your choice if you want, And this was way before she was getting paid any real money in the UFC. It was quite early on in her career. And she said, no, can you donate it to this charity which helps animals? I actually want to see if I can find it, boys, because I want to know exactly who it was. Okay, so I've actually found it here. So it wasn't to animals. That was somebody else, another fighter I donated to. I think it might have been Benoit Saint Denis or someone else. I honestly can't remember. But this was to the RAFT Niagara Resource Service for Youth. So yeah, it just shows you what type of person Jasudavicius is. She could have took the money for herself, and I have donated to fighters before and they have done that, but she said, no, send it to the youth. And as you can see here, this was in 2023. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see. This was in 2023. And if you go back and see her career in 2023, I don't think she was getting paid that much. So Jasmine's a legend. She's cashed me out massive, won me lots of money, and she's a beautiful person as well, you know, so I'm always going to root for Jazz. I did unfortunately have to bet against her in her last fight against Manon Fiorot, and although the bet looked really easy, I didn't think that was going to be the case. I didn't think Manon Fiorot would ice her the way she did. But at the end of the day, Jasudavicius is very hittable on the feet. She's extremely aggressive. And when you have that style, that does happen. We don't expect to see it in women's MMA, especially against someone like Manon Fiorot, who, although is a beast, is a decision fighter, let's be real. And so we didn't expect to see that, but I'm not like super surprised when we actually think of the context of the matchup. Jasmine has nothing for Manon on the feet, and she got iced on the feet. You know, I felt like a KO was live way later into the fight. Body shots and TKO, you know, from headshots and stuff like that. I didn't think she was going to get iced. I'm interested to see how she responds from that. One thing I am happy about is that Jasmine took a lot of time off since that knockout. I mean, it was in October, so it's not like the craziest amount of time of all time, but we're in April now, you know, so you're talking 5-6 months. I'm glad. I don't like to see a fighter come back from a knockout in 1 month, 2 months. I like to see it when they take 5 or 6 months like Jasmine has. One thing that you can count on Jasmine to do as well is force finishes. You know, she is a finisher at the women's MMA level, which is quite respectable because most women don't finish, just in general. There's not a lot of finishes in women's MMA when you compare it to men's MMA. On the other hand, we got Karine Silva, who's somewhat of a finisher herself. Now, it hasn't completely translated to the UFC level, but she does have a fair few finishes in the UFC. And the fights that have gone to a decision, she has been close to getting some submissions in those fights. And in this fight, I feel like she's going to get close to getting a submission. You know, I do think that Jasudavicius' wrestling game is going to get her into trouble to some degree. She puts herself into front chokes at times, and Karine Silva has one of the best front chokes in the game. So I think that if you bet on Jasmine at minus 300, there's going to be some sweaty moments. Ultimately, I am predicting Jazz to come through those sweaty moments, avoid the submissions and not get finished. And so then grind Karine Silva out, kind of like Macy Barber did. You know, she was getting put in submissions. There was a few times where they looked close, but she was able to survive them and grind Karine Silva out. And I kind of feel like that's what Jasmine's going to do. She may even have a massive round 3, potentially even finish Karine Silva. One thing about Silva is that she gasses out in basically every single third round that she's been in. You know, she does gas out. She's a gasser, right? And so I think that someone like Jasmine, with her pressure, pace, aggression, wrestling, cardio, non-stop style, it's kind of the style that you want to have against someone like Karine Silva, because you can rely on Jasmine to push the pace and gas out the gasser even earlier than she usually gasses out, and then the finish becomes extremely live. So Jasudavicius via round 3 finish is going to be live here. At the same time, it's very hard to predict it outright. And that is because Karine Silva is very good at jiu-jitsu. You know, she's good on bottom in general. Yeah, she can be pounded out a little bit. I've seen that, but she's got good jiu-jitsu. She should be able to use her jiu-jitsu to keep Jasmine from advancing position enough to get the finish like she did against fighters like Ariane Lipski in the 3rd round, Priscilla Cachoeira in the 3rd round, you know? So I don't know if I'm outright predicting it. I might even bet it, because at the end of the day, it's going to be plus 1,500, you know, just like the Charles Jourdain one. I'm not really predicting it, but I mean, maybe I think I did predict it, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to say round 3 finish is my prediction. Ethan Ewing via round 3 finish the week before last, is last week at the time I'm recording this video, was my prediction. But to actually have that as your official prediction, it's tough. I guess I'll be a pussy and lean Jasmine decision, but it, man. I'll just say round 3 TKO. I'll say round 3 knockout, you know. Submission is live, I guess, but it'll be more like a knockout. Just because of the dynamic of the fight. You know, I think Karine's going to get tired here. I think I think the way to play this, boys, you go Jasmine round 3 or decision, you know, to cut that price down. I don't think she's winning in round 1 or 2. I'll be extremely surprised. So you go Jasmine round 3 or decision prop, you know. And, you know, you can play the round 3 and decision separately if you want. You just make sure you stake it correctly so you win either way. And then maybe you play Karine Silva via submission. I don't think Karine Silva wins the fight outside of a submission. I think that's her path to victory. It's actually quite a higher path to victory than you would think. You know, like, it's not like, when I say she's sub or bust, it doesn't mean she's got no chance to get the sub. She has a decent chance to get the sub. I actually think she'll have a closely locked in submission in this fight. Maybe even 2, because she does in most fights. But I'm not actually predicting that to happen. I think Jasmine will survive it, like I said earlier. So, yeah, Jasudavicius via round 3 finish is my official prediction for this fight. Quick one before we move on. Every single bet I place and send out to my private community, the Elite Zone, is tracked on a third party, meaning that you can go back And anyone can go back and see a list of every single bet, win, lose, or draw that I've placed over the last 7 years. The reason I do this is to be completely transparent and differentiate myself from most of the scam decappers out there online at the moment who are just telling you to believe their word of results. So when I talk about my performance, I'm talking about verified numbers. And based on the full tracked history, a $10,000 starting investment / bankroll to my service would have yielded over $500,000 of profit since I started in October 2019 if you followed all the bets, or over $240,000 on a more conservative scale. Now that's historical performance of what I've done, right? That's not a guarantee of any results. I'm not guaranteeing everything. Results fluctuate for a multitude of reasons, but that is what my model has actually produced. On top of that, 91% of all entry points to my service has created profit. What that means in layman terms is that if you joined at a completely random point in time, more than 9 times out of 10, you would have made money if you stayed with me until today. That puts this above almost every professional betting service in existence. 9% of entry points still lose, but 91% win. And 9% of those entry points may turn into winners if they stay longer. That's just talking about the results today. This is what disciplined, consistent following of this model through the downtrends and the uptrends can do over time. If you want to copy the exact bets that I'm personally placing every single week, then click the link in the bio down below at sublaunch.com/lucrative MMA. On that website, you can sign up to the Elite Zone on a weekly or monthly plan. Or if you want something more, you can sign up to the yearly or the lifetime plan and you get extra insider access. That's direct access to me and a bunch of sports bettors in the chat rooms on fight nights as well as a bunch of other things that don't get posted publicly. Both are live at sublaunch.com/lucrative MMA down below right now. Track numbers, fully transparent, unlike most of what you see online today. Now let's get into the next fight. Next up, we have a Striker's Delight. This is going to be a banger, boys. I don't know if this one will last long. We have Mandel Nallo taking on Herbert. Nallo coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 3 losses. Herbert, on the other hand, 13 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. They got Mandel Nallo as the very slight favorite at minus 155 odds, with the underdog price tag on Herbert sitting at plus 135. This is a very interesting one, boys. The fight of 2 strikers. Who is going to be the better striker, or, as I always say, the more effective striker? One thing that's very important to understand in MMA, when you're analyzing MMA, but also when you're betting on MMA, is that the better striker, the prettier striker, the cleaner striker, the more technical striker, the striker with more experience doesn't always win. It always comes down to who is the more effective striker. You know, we have seen better strikers get murdered by opponents who are much inferior strikers than them because their opponents are more effective with their striking style. And I honestly feel like this fight may be the perfect example of that. I would say that Herbert is the better striker here, you know? He may not look as cool or as pretty, or he may not have the highlight reels that Mando Nallo does. And Mando Nallo may do a few things on the feet better than him, but I do think that, you know, over the course of 15, 25-minute fight, Herbert's striking will start to show itself as being superior, you know, technically. He will land the better shots. He will make better reads as the fight goes on. But that doesn't mean that he's the more effective striker. Because I actually feel like Mando Nallo, in this fight, in this context, could potentially be more effective. And honestly, a big part of that is Herbert's durability. Now, yes, we haven't seen it in some time, but I don't think Herbert has the best chin. I think he's a bit chinny. And I think that his chin issues may rear their ugly head again as he faces rat garbage this weekend. Yeah, make no mistake about it, boys. Mandel Nallo's nickname is Rat Garbage. Now, his nickname on Tapology is Mango, but I'm old enough to remember that Mandel Nallo had a different nickname, one of Rat Garbage, back in the day. In fact, his Instagram handle is still Rat Garbage, so maybe he still adopts that moniker to some degree. Crazy nickname, but it is what it is. He's taken on a Black Country banger. Yeah, I just feel like Herbert's chin may let him down here. You might say to me, James, he's only been knocked out by Ilia Topuria, which doesn't count, and then Francisco Trinaldo in round 3, which was an absolute peach of a shot. And actually, you would be right. But if you look a little bit deeper, I've seen Herbert react a bit poorly to shots more than one occasion, and more on those occasions where he's only been knocked out. You know, the other fights, he's been wobbled at times. In fact, Chris Padilla won the entire 3rd round off a last-minute wobble. I believe it was the 3rd round. Was it the 3rd round? Yeah, I think it was the third round. Off a last second wobble with like 15 seconds to go. And that lost him the fight. You know, it was a split decision. If he would have won that round, he would have won the fight. And he lost it off being hurt, off of his chin, because he was actually pouring the pressure on and he was looking good in that third round, and then he got caught. So he lost it because he was chinny. You know, even though it doesn't say a knockout loss on his record, that's why doing tape study is a lot more important than just looking at stats and overall results of a fight, because they don't tell the full picture of the fight most of the time. So I kind of feel like Mando Nallo is going to catch Jai Herbert early in this fight. If he doesn't do that, Jai Herbert will take over, in my opinion. You know, and sometimes people will comment and say things like, oh, this guy, he picked both fighters. You know, it's really annoying. Or not that I picked both fighters, but that I gave both fighters an opportunity to win, and that is really annoying. I did see a comment like that last week. I don't often read the comments, but I did last week, and I found a comment where someone was saying, yeah, you know, he's picking both sides, or he's saying that this fighter could win, but this fighter also could win. But that's because it's true. Both fighters could win on their day. And one thing that is extremely important in MMA betting, and this is where I'm trying to give you my 10 years worth of knowledge, is that you need to respect every possibility of a fight, right? You need to respect every potential outcome of a fight as a real possibility of happening. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose money in the long term betting on MMA. Anytime anybody says to you, this is the only way a fight can go, or this can never happen, they are wrong. You know, it happens time and time again where fights seem like that they can definitely not end in a specific way, and they do. Just last week, we had Tresean Gore winning via submission in round 3. You know, that's not a common outcome. Most people would have said that couldn't have happened. Not me, but a lot of people would have said that that's not a possible outcome of the fight. And in fact, in that very breakdown, I picked Bekoev to win, but I said that the value was on Tresean Gore and the odds are crazy. So essentially, I'm picking both fighters, if you want to call it that, but it's not picking both fighters. It's just acknowledging that both fighters have chances to win. Speaking about all of those chances, it's stupid to speak about one fighter and one chance only. It makes no sense. It's low level, low betting thinking. You should speak about every outcome and then make your decision on how likely those individual outcomes are to happen. And sometimes you'll have both fighters and you'll be equally likely that either outcome could happen. Like you'll be equally likely that Jiri will knock out Allberg as you are, or equally as confident that Jiri will knock out Allberg as you are that Allberg will knock out Jiri, right? Sometimes that happens. Most of the time you lean one way or the other. And I actually am leaning Mandel Nallo to win this fight early in round 1. But if the fight gets into round 2 and round 3, I start to lean to Jai Herbert, and I actually pick Jai Herbert in that fight. If you was to tell me, James, this fight not only goes to decision, but I'll take one step back, enters round 3, I'm going to pick Jai Herbert to win the fight. If you was to tell me, James, the fight does not see the third round, I will pick Mando Nallo to win the fight, right? So multiple opportunities for either fighter to win. Jai Herbert knockout in round 3 or decision. Mando Nallo knockout round 1 or round 2, most likely. And so I'm giving credence to all of these potential outcomes, and then I'm telling you what way I lean strongest. Sometimes it's 50-50. Very rare, very, very rare, but sometimes it happens. On this one, I think Mando Nallo will catch him in round 1. You know, I just can't unsee Mando Nallo's funky striking, his flying knees, his pinpoint accuracy on his 1-2, and the way he counter strikes. I can't unsee that being too much for Jai Herbert to deal with in round 1. By the end of the day, man, like I said, very close fight. Both fighters are good strikers. Both fighters are tall, long, rangy, and neither fighter can win on their day. We've seen Mando Nallo now multiple times capitulate as the fight gets later into rounds, whether it's a cardio issue, whether it's more of an issue, which I tend to believe, in that he doesn't have like a coherent 15-minute game where he's racking up points. He has a great game plan. He kind of just goes in there and flows. And when that flow doesn't lead to a finish early, his opponent can start to beat him down, can start to hurt him to the legs, hurt him to the body, take him down, grapple him as happened before, and start to, you know, overwhelm him with a more deeper MMA game plan and game. But he's so dangerous in that first round. So I picked Mando Nallo to win this fight via KO. I think Faraz Sahabi will come in there with a good game plan, but I don't even think it's going to matter too much, because I think Mando Nallo will just fight as he always does, you know, and the game plan may go out the window to some degree. And I think he's just going to try and land a knockout early. And I'm actually going to predict him to do it here. I'm going to say it's the right hand of Mandel Nallo that lands the knockout in round 1 against Jai Herbert this weekend. Next up, we got Thiago Moises taking on Gage Young. Moises coming into this fight, extensive MMA record, 19 wins, 9 losses, almost 30 fights for the veteran. Gage Young, on the other hand, very, very young in the game compared to Moises. He has 10 wins and 3 losses. They do have Gage Young sitting as the favorite currently, though. Very, very slight favorite. He is a minus 125 favorite with the underdog price tag on Thiago Moises sitting at plus 105. The interesting one here, boys. So something I found out during my research is that Thiago Moises has moved to the Fighting Nerds now. So I'm interested to see whether he will have a second career resurgence after being at one of the best camps in Brazil. The move may be permanent. I'm not 100% sure, but he's been training there for at least 20 weeks. So it's quite a long time. You know, you're talking over 4 months he's been there. That's considerable amount of time. He may be making improvements there. I'm sure he's training with the best, so he's learning from them. By the end of the day, he's a veteran. I don't expect him to change that much. Maybe it'll just give him more of like a morale, mental boost than anything too much more than that. His last fight, he fought Jared Gordon, and it was a really bad performance because he got knocked out in round 1 by Jared Gordon, and Jared Gordon doesn't really do that to anybody. You know, I played Jared Gordon to win in that fight. I also played Jared Gordon to win in round 2 and round 3, and to see him knock out Moises in round 1, like, it was quite embarrassing for Moises, and I feel like he may be on a downtrend in his career now. And Moises is the type of guy that, you know, he's had some good runs and stuff like that. I mean, he's got a win over Melquizel Costa, which is a great win at this point in Costa's career. But I honestly feel like if they fought today, Costa probably wins. And I just feel like Moises is just getting worse, you know, as the years go on. The main thing sticks out to me in this matchup is durability and will to win, you know, and trustability. The thing about this fight is Moises is so much less durable than Gage Young. If anyone gets hurt here, you have to believe it's going to be Thiago Moises, maybe even knocked out. And the person who's going to grind and go 15 minutes and push harder and have that will to win again is going to be Gage Young, in my opinion. And that can go a long way, even if you're out-skilled. And I will say that Thiago Moises overall is more skilled than Gage Young by a considerable margin. I would say potentially Gage Young has better boxing, but overall striking I'd give to Thiago Moises. I think his calf kicks are massive, and I think they could be a big weapon here. I think his kicks in general are better, and like his experience in striking fights over 15. I mean, he beat Bobby Green in his prime over 15 minutes. He beat Alexander Hernandez over 15 minutes in pure striking bouts. I think he can show good striking IQ when his opponent stands on the outside, doesn't force pace like Hernandez and Bobby Green oftentimes will do. The issue is I think Gage Young is going to force pace here. I think he's going to walk forward and just force a heavy pace. And I don't think Thiago Moises is going to be able to deal with that. Now, at the end of the day, man, Thiago Moises has fought the much better level of competition, has beat the much better level of competition. Gage Young having a very close fight against Mahashate, got outclassed by Evan Elder. And so those fights don't fill you with confidence. Did have a good fight against Quillen Salkild, which I would say is quite impressive. But, you know, those other 2 fights do not fill you with confidence when you're taking on someone like Thiago Moises, who is a veteran, you know, who has done more in the game than anyone that Gage Young has fought. But I just feel like stylistically, with the durability, the cardio, the will to win, the pressure, I feel like it's a hard matchup for Moises. I mean, for Moises to win, he needs to get the back, you know, and maybe get a submission, which he can always do. He's very good at taking it back, but I don't think he has great wrestling. I don't really expect him. He did take down Islam Makhachev, which is kind of crazy, but I don't really expect him to take down Gage Young and control him for any amount of time. He could take him down and jump on his back instantly. Like, that could happen, but I don't really trust his wrestling against Gage Young's, like over the 15-minute distance, maybe like a quick back take. So I kind of feel like he's going to be on the feet for the most part. And so for Moises to win on the feet, he has to stay on the outside for 15 minutes, make no mistakes, fight a perfect game plan, never succumb to the pace and pressure, and stick and move on the outside like Evan Elder was able to do with extreme skill. He doesn't have that, man. Evan Elder is so much more of a skilled striker than Thiago Moises. It's not even close. Evan Elder can throw 5, 6, 7 strike combinations. Moises could never do that. You know, Evan Elder has great footwork, much better than Thiago Moises. I just don't think, like, Evan Elder can evade, you know, and I just don't think Thiago Moises is that good at evading. You know, I really don't. I feel like he needs his opponent to evade, and then he can have a point striking fight. But if his opponent is walking forward into range, I think they're basically going to tee off on him to some degree, especially in the later rounds 2 and 3. because I think Moises is, I know he's only 31, but I feel like he's getting washed. But yeah, it's a tough one, boys, because at the end of the day, Gage-Young hasn't proved he's at this level yet. He just hasn't, you know, and anytime he has been at this semi-level, he's lost, you know, cleanly against Quillen and against Evan Elder, although Quillen was a great fighter, but he did lose cleanly. So he's never proven it, and this is a big step down for Thiago Moises. Not necessarily a big step down from Jared Gordon, really, but it's kind of on a similar level. But again, Jared Gordon has proven that level time and time again. It's kind of taking a leap of faith on Gage-Young, thinking he can be something that he hasn't proven yet, and he has faltered at when he has taken that step up to be that level that I think he could be. But he's born in the year 2000. He's only 25 years old. When he fought Evan Elder, he was 24. Quillen Salkady was 23. I think he's going to get better and better, and I honestly feel like this could be a perfect stylistic fight for him if he avoids the grappling, to where he can kind of put the pace and pressure on Thiago Moises and maybe even break him. So I'm actually going to pick Gage-Young here to get the upset. Well, he's not an upset. He's minus 125 favorite. I feel like people will bet Thiago Moises, you know, just because Gage-Young is not proven, etc., and it will become the upset. But as I'm recording this video, he isn't. But again, you never know what way the market will go. But yeah, I'll pick Gage-Young to win this fight. Next up, we have Denis Buzukja versus Marcio Barbosa. Buzukja coming into this fight, 12 wins, 5 losses. Barbosa, on the other hand, 17 wins, 2 losses. Very shiny record for Mr. Barbosa. Currently, they have the shiny record Barbosa as a massive minus 400 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Buzukja sitting at plus 300 odds. All right, this one could potentially be an execution, boys. If it isn't, it's going to get real funny. But Barbosa should really go out there and execute Buzukja in round 1 here. I mean, that's what he does, you know. He's got into round 2 before, and what happened to him? He got slumped. He got finished. He did fight a super high-level fighter in Gabriel Santos, somebody that I believe beat Lerone Murphy, who almost fought for the title in the featherweight division not too long ago. And when he fought Gabriel Santos, he hurt him badly in that fight. And Gabriel Santos was able to come back and get the knockout himself. So Barbosa can hurt anybody early, and he finishes everybody in round 1. But if he doesn't, he gets finished himself. I'm going to bring his record up on the screen right now. And take a look at this with me, boys. The 2 times he's got into round 2, he's been finished. Not the only 2 times he's gone into round 2. He did go to a split decision before. So, yeah, he went into round 2 there. I wasn't able to watch that fight, but I'm sure he got tired in that fight just like he did in the other 2. To be honest, Gabriel Santos just caught him early. I can't say he was tired, but he was tired. He's just the type of guy where, you know, he throws hell in round 1, and if he doesn't get you out of there, he's probably going to gas out. And Buzukja is one of those fighters who could potentially, you know, take your punishment. But he has been knocked out in round 1 before by Jamal Emmers, and in other fights, he's got absolutely brutalized, dominated, not knocked out, but knocked down, hurt, etc. And I just feel like Barbosa's too aggressive, too powerful for him, and he's going to knock him out. Look, at the end of the day, if Barbosa is making his UFC debut, and if he has UFC jitters here, we could most certainly see Buzukja not get knocked out. And if the fight gets into round 2 or round 3, it's anybody's fight at that point. You know, Buzukja could just potentially take over with cardio and veteran experience. But I have to pick Barbosa to get the round 1 knockout here. It seems too obvious. And he's a big favorite. Barbosa, round 1 knockout, my official prediction. Next up, John Castaneda takes on Dana White's Contender Series loser, who was signed after a loss, Mark Vologdin, in what was the lucrative MMA 2025 Fight of the Year. Whereas if you have not seen Mark Vologdin's last fight, his Dana White Contender Series fight, do me a favor and please go and watch it. John Castaneda coming into this fight with a record of 21 wins, 8 losses. Mark Vologdin, on the other hand, 12 wins, 4 losses with 1 draw. Vologdin, coming in off a loss on the Contender Series, finds himself as the favorite in his UFC debut at minus 130, with the underdog price tag on UFC veteran at this point, John Castaneda, sitting at plus 110 odds. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised to see that Castaneda is the underdog here, boys. And I kind of feel like by the time this video is released, he may not even be the underdog. You know, that's still to be said. Most people don't bet this early. But I just feel like Mark Vologdin has not proven himself at the UFC level. Look, when I done the intro, I told you guys that Mark Vologdin actually won an award, the lucrative MMA 2025 Fight of the Year award, right? And that was because he had a crazy fight with Adrian Martinelli on Dana White's Contender Series that went viral. It was one of the best fights I've ever seen. It was the Fight of the Year last year for me personally. And I know he proved a lot in that fight in terms of durability, will to win, some power, and just overall recoverability, right? But he also showed a lot of bad things in that fight. Like, never mind the durability. What about the hit ability? What about the fact that he could not stuff a takedown and he couldn't get up when he really needed to? Yes, he was completely tired, but Martinelli is not some amazing wrestler that he's just going to be able to take him down and stuff. So also, he gassed out completely. Look, it was an absolute war, but he gassed out fairly early, and just the way he was getting hit. I mean, he gassed out because he got hit so much. I mean, he didn't show any semblance of a great, well-rounded game. He was basically just swinging big shots and being tough. I don't know, man. Like, he has not proved anything to me. Castaneda, on the other hand, yes, he's on a 2-fight skid, but he's proved something to me. Yes, he got hurt by Marcos. Yes, he got hurt in his last fight, but he proved stuff to me even in those fights, you know, because Marcos and Chris Gutierrez are good UFC level fighters. Chris Gutierrez's fight was a very close fight. I feel like fight IQ for Castaneda lost it to him. I didn't like how he didn't commit to his takedowns a bit more, but Chris Gutierrez is a veteran at the end of the day. He's very good at keeping distance and keeping range. Mark Vologdin is not. I feel like if Castaneda was fighting Mark Vologdin in that fight on that day, he probably would have got to his wrestling more. He probably would have trusted his wrestling more because Vologdin is smaller, way easier to take down, way worse at controlling range. He almost has no idea how to control range. And that opens up a lot for Castaneda, not only in the wrestling, but also that left high kick. Castaneda has a very elite left high kick, and I could easily see him landing that here. Castaneda is a good fighter, man. He's got wins over Muin Gafarov, Miles Johns via finish, Kung Ho Kang, and an absolute banger where he almost knocked out Daniel Santos, who is a very good fighter at this point. So, you know, that's a lot more than Mark Vologdin's done. Look, at the end of the day, Vologdin hits hard, he swings hard, and he has crazy will to win and extreme toughness more than Castaneda, in my opinion. So if he hurts Castaneda early, he might just not let him off the hook. And it might change the entire trajectory of the fight, like what happened in the Chris Gutierrez and Marcos fight. But man, I cannot pick anyone other than John Castaneda here, especially as an underdog. I would pick him as a favorite as well. He's shown me way more in his career. Yeah, he's 34 years old. Yeah, he's 2-fight loss streak, but I don't care about any of that. I care about what I watch on tape. And what I watch on tape is someone who has never done anything on the UFC level and someone who has very good UFC wins. So I'm picking John Castaneda as the underdog outright in this fight to get a win, most likely via decision, just based on how tough Vologdin is. But with that being said, I will look at the odds for the doesn't go to decision and the goes to decision. Because if one of those are plus money, then I may look at those. Because even though Vologdin's tough, if you take that many shots, you are not going to survive. And as I mentioned, John Castaneda's head kick is going to be there all day, just like it was on Daniel Santos. And a lot of that is due to the size, the height, not only the hitability. And on the other hand, we know Vologdin packs power, and he is going to do everything in his power to get a knockout, especially after last time getting signed. I just want to be in the good books of Dana White. Even if I lose, I'll probably, still be kept in the UFC if it's a great fight. So that lends itself to a doesn't go to decision, but ultimately I will actually take the Castaneda via decision pick. Next up on the card is Mitch Raposo taking on Allan Nascimento, the grappling phenom of the flyweight division. Mitch Raposo coming into this fight with a record of 10 wins, 3 losses. Nascimento, on the other hand, 22 wins with 6 losses. Currently, they have Nascimento as a pretty big favorite here, minus 280 odds with the underdog price tag on Mitch Raposo sitting at plus 240. No surprise with the odds there. Boy, oh boy, this is an interesting one, boys, and people are not going to like my take on this one. So I actually feel like Mitch Raposo has a good chance of winning this fight against Allan Nascimento. Now, let me tell you something now. I am a big Allan Nascimento fan. I think he's a very good fighter. I've bet on him multiple times. I bet on him to finish Cody Durden last time out, not only win. I didn't actually bet on him to win because the odds were terrible. I bet on him to finish because the odds were good. Again, we don't bet on who we think is going to win. We bet where the odds are good, right? So I bet on him there. I bet on him against Andre Fialho. I don't think that was a great fighter. I don't think that was a great bet, but I still did bet on him there. So I'm a big fan of him and of his style to some degree, just because he's so good on the ground. Oh God, this guy is an elite grappler, man. If he gets hold of your neck, you may be done. If he gets taken down, he may just submit you. I'll never forget Tagir Ulanbekov having to fight himself out of hell through all 15 minutes just from staying in top position because of how tricky Allan Nascimento's guard is. Allan Nascimento, very good at sweeping as well. Submissions from guard, not only to submit you, but also to sweep you and get on top. And on top, he's so dangerous. The way he's so much bigger than his opponents. He's a massive, massive flyweight. Honestly, he should be at bantamweight, but he's at flyweight, and that helps him to some degree. But I also think he makes him tire out. As the fight goes later on, I don't think he looks great. Yes, he's won 3 rounds before. before, third rounds, and, he's performed well in them. But I definitely see him slowing down as the fight goes on. I feel like Mitch has the better cardio here. I think Mitch is the better striker, honestly. Allan's not the worst striker. He has some good kicks. But I think Mitch judges range better, and I think he has better boxing, and he's going to be able to stay in and out. Also, Mitch is a great wrestler, so I don't really think Allan's going to be able to take him down. I mean, Allan has bad wrestling, to be honest. He isn't able to take anyone down, really. I mean, the way he gets you down is either you take him down and he sweeps you, or he gets you down with jumping on your back from standing. Like, this is really how he gets his submissions. It's not going out there and wrestling people. He tries. He's not the worst. He's not as good as Mitch, though. So it just seems stylistically Mitch has a good chance to win this fight. Now, at the end of the day, Allan, even if stylistically it's not a great matchup, he's minus 280 for a reason. He's so much better at submissions. If he gets the back once, it could be over. If Mitch shoots a takedown like he does in most fights, it could be over. He could just wrap up a guillotine on the first takedown. So I'm totally aware of the possibilities of Allan. And as I mentioned earlier, we have to speak about all possibilities of the fight, right? I'm totally aware of the possibilities of Allan Nascimento getting a submission here. And I'd even hesitate and say, in fact, that may be the most likely outcome of the fight. But I'm going to pick Mitch Raposo here as a massive underdog to come out there and hugely upset Allan Nascimento. At the end of the day, if this fight stays on the feet, there is no plus 240s in it. There is no minus 280 favorites. And I cannot trust Allan Nascimento's wrestling against a much better wrestler. I just can't do it. Can I trust him getting a submission? Not really. I can't trust him getting a submission from something, because if Mitch Raposo stays smart, uses his wrestling in defense, to which I think he could potentially do coming up against Allan Nascimento, I think he will be smart with it, probably. I mean, it's a bit of a guess. I think Mitch has decent fight IQ, honestly. And he seems like, he's had some fights where he honestly shouldn't have been awarded a split decision loss, but the judges like him. I think he's just a smart fighter. I think he knows when to go. I think he knows when to shoot his takedowns, and he knows when to not. I think he knows when to strike. I think he knows he needs to win the last second of the rounds, to put a stamp on them, etc. I think he's got good fight IQ. And I think if he uses good fight IQ here, stylistically, he can win this fight as one of the biggest underdogs on the card, and I'm picking him, Mitch Raposo, to win. Next up, we have women's MMA action. Melissa Croden taking on Darya Zheleznyakova. Croden coming into this fight, 7 wins, 3 losses. Zheleznyakova, 10 wins and 2 losses. Currently, they have Melissa Croden as the minus 180 favorite, with Darya Zheleznyakova having an underdog price tag of plus 155 odds. Yeah, this fight should be a banger, honestly. Like, this is a women's MMA banger. I mean, Darya is going to throw down. I'll tell you that now. She ain't afraid of a scrap, and neither is Melissa Croden. She may even throw down even more. And both of the girls are quite hittable. I mean, definitely Melissa Croden is extremely hittable, so I expect Darya to hurt her early, maybe multiple times, just like in that Jacqueline Cavalcante fight where Melissa Croden was hurt multiple times. I think we could see the same here, but then Melissa Croden, she's the round 3 queen, except for her last fight. Let's not speak about that one. I mean, we can speak about it. I didn't bet on that fight, but yeah, it wasn't great in round 3, but she's the round 3 queen. The reason she's the round 3 queen is she cashed me in the elite zone in round 3 against Tainara Lisboa. That was an absolute epic cash, plus 1,400 or plus 2,000 cash, something like that. She's also got other round 3 finishes on her record, and she breaks her opponents down as the fight goes on, and I kind of see her breaking down Darya here as the fight goes on, but I think early Darya will compete and do well and land big shots on the feet, honestly. So yeah, it's a great fight, boys. Like, I don't have a super strong take at the line. If it was minus 110 apiece, I'd play Croden. I trust her a little bit more as the fight goes on. But at the same time, man, Croden's not getting any younger. She's 34 years old now, probably a finished product. Darya Zheleznyakova is only 30, so she's coming into her prime right now, maybe even a couple of years off it. I'd say Croden is probably in her prime now, or maybe, a year or two ago, like around this time, whereas Zheleznyakova still has some room for improvement, in my opinion. Something that I found interesting on my studies, I was able to find out that a Russian interview by Darya Zheleznyakova mentioned that, not that she has struggled in this camp, but a few interesting things she pointed out in that interview. One thing she said is that she thinks it's going to be a very inconvenient fight for her against Melissa Croden, because she's very used to fighting and also sparring shorter fighters, and Melissa Croden's a big girl, so she thinks that it's going to be an inconvenient stylistic matchup based on the size. She also says that she didn't have anyone to imitate Melissa Croden, so they was going to fly someone in from Brazil, but Darya had to say no because it cost too much money. She couldn't afford it, so she couldn't fly in the training partner that she wanted to imitate Melissa, so she wasn't able to get in the stylistic rounds that she wanted and she would have done if she had money. She also said that she believes the fight with Croden is going to take place almost entirely on the feet. She did mention that maybe they'll clinch up for a couple of seconds on the cage, but she thinks Melissa's going to go out there and strike with her. So all of those things are kind of semi-red flags for me. I'm not going to say they're big or they make a big difference to my mentality, because what I see on tape is 95%. I won't say 95. There's a lot of other caveats. I'm trying to be diplomatic. What I see on tape is 90% of what I base my studying on. But I don't really love Darya saying she thinks Melissa's just going to only go out there and strike. I mean, does that mean you haven't been preparing enough for the wrestling? I mean, you are not a good wrestler anyway. You look very bad on bottom. She did mention the time she got submitted on bottom by Aylin Perez in that interview, and she said that she didn't think it was tight at all. She thought she was fine. Next thing you know, she's tapping. So again, that's kind of tells you all you need to know about her submission skills. She didn't even know it was tight. Like, she literally didn't know she was in trouble until it was too late. I mean, that's not great. It's not like Aylin Perez is some super elite jiu-jitsu submission artist where she wraps up a choke when you don't even know, and the next thing you know, you're tapping out Charles Oliveira style. You know what I mean? So she's not a great wrestler or a great ground fighter at all by any means. So I hope she was training for that, because Melissa Croden will take you down. She will beat you up. She will shoot takedowns. Not initially. She usually does it as the fight goes on, and sometimes even reverses you, but she will shoot. So yeah, I don't love that, because I think she's wrong there. I don't think Melissa's just going to strike with her for 15 minutes. I also don't like her saying that it's inconvenient for her that Melissa's tall. I guess it's, being honest, but why don't you have tall training partners? Also, it's not great that you don't have money to fly these. There's just a few things that I don't love to hear, But stylistically, boys, I just feel like Darya's going to win early. She's going to ping off Croden's head, but I think Croden's going to come back. I do, man. I think she's more proven at the MMA level, at the UFC level. I think she's fought better girls in Jacqueline Cavalcante and Luana Santos, 2 losses there. But her win against Tainara Lisboa is better than anything Darya's done. I guess Darya's win against Melissa Mullins is comparable to a Tainara Lisboa. And I don't even know who that would win that fight. I don't know who I would take to win that fight, honestly. Tainara Lisboa versus Melissa Mullins is a banger. I honestly don't know. But yeah, close fight. But I think Croden is going to start to edge it late. I feel like the line is probably about right. I'd have to think about it a bit more, but I'd say it's about right. I'm going to pick Croden here. I'm going to pick Croden to win in round 3, just like I did many semi-moons ago when she finished Tainara Lisboa. I'm going to pick her to get it done again. Melissa Croden to win in round 3 is my official prediction. And I'll say it's another TKO win. Boys, before we get into the last few fights of the card, make sure that you join my free Telegram if you haven't already, because I do giveaways there where I give out cash very regularly to people in the Telegram completely for free. I also post breakdowns of fights and betting knowledge that I don't post anywhere else. You can join that completely for free down below. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, if you want to copy and paste my exact bets, the link is in the bio for that as well. Sublaunch.com/lucrative MMA. Now let's get into the next few fights. Next up is Robin Valentini is taking on Julien Leblanc. Valentin coming into this fight, 10 wins, 6 losses. Leblanc, 10 wins, just like Valentin, but a lot less losses. He has only lost 2 times in his career. Currently they have Leblanc as the -155 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Robin Valentine sitting at +135 odds. Interesting one, boys. Another fighter who is line -155. I honestly feel like the line is telling you something here. I mean, Robert Valentin, he's 0-3 in the promotion. Sometimes fighters don't even get a full fight. He's getting a full fight. And a lot of those fights have been brutal finishes. And I mean, every single one has been a domination, right? He got completely dominated by Torres Finney. Now, look, it was a split decision. People are going to say Torres did no damage. He got by Torres Finney. It is what it is. He got taken down. He couldn't get back up again. It was an embarrassing performance for Robert Valentin. Let's be real, right? Split decision or not, Torres Finney, whatever. He couldn't do anything, right? Domination. Atiba Gauthier knocked out in round 1. Complete domination. It is what it is. That happens. And then his other loss was against Ryan Loder, which was the least domination of them all because he had his back in round 1. But after that, he succumbed to Ryan Loder's knockout and he lost via knockout again, right? Big ground and pound. So all 3 losses have been bad. They've looked bad. Like they're on highlight reels with Gauthier. He's finished early against Loder and dominated against Torres Finney. Highlight reels of the takedowns and stuff like that. So I'm surprised he's only +135 underdog. You know, usually when we have this new shiny toy coming in, making their UFC debut, getting finishes on the regional scene, they usually make these guys minus 200 or something. I don't know why Leblanc didn't go to the Contender Series, but actually I do. It's because they're in Canada. They need Canadian fighters. I'm not sure that Leblanc is UFC level. We may find out this weekend, but even if he beats Valentin, it doesn't really mean he's UFC level, because I don't even know how UFC level Valentin is. I do think that he's got a UFC level skill set, which I'm not sure I can say the same for Leblanc, and the UFC level skill set that Valentin has is his submission game. He's got very, very tricky submissions, good setups to all of them. He can take your back very fast, and I don't think he's the worst. I think he's 0-3, but I think he can still show more. And I'm actually going to pick Valentin to beat Leblanc as the underdog here at plus 135 odds, because I think he's better than what he's shown. I think there's a reason he's getting a full fight in the UFC. I think it's because the UFC know that he could be in exciting fights. He's kind of a kill or be killed fighter, unless he's fighting Torres, Finney, wet blanket. And I think that they know he can, like, he's pretty exciting, right? Because he goes out there, he throws heavy early. He's not very good on the feet, but he throws heavy early, and he's good at submissions. I think Leblanc will tag him up on the feet if the fight stays there. But I feel like Valentin could potentially land a big shot on the feet or get the fight to the ground and, you know, most likely get the submission win. I think that's how he wins. I think the fight ends in round 1. I think fight ends in round 1, doesn't start round 2, or under 1.5 could be a good prop, or fight doesn't go to decision if they're giving us some good odds. Based on Leblanc not being like the best finisher of all time and some of his fights going late, we may see that. Valentin, obviously, you know, he is a bit of a kill or be killed fighter, so maybe they won't give us a good price. But that's how I see the fight playing out, boys. I mean, either fighter can win, yes, for sure. Like we said earlier, I respect all possibilities, but I am picking Valentin personally here. It's not super confident like some of these other fighters, but I am picking Valentin to win the fight. I'm picking him to win via submission, and I'm picking him to win via submission in round 1. Next up, some unranked heavyweight action, and honestly, I didn't even know these two guys were signed by the UFC. Kind of crazy that they're signed by the UFC. I'll speak more of that when I break the fight down, but it is Gokhan Saricam taking on Tanner Boser. Boser coming into this fight with a record of 22 wins, 10 losses, 1 draw. Saricam, on the other hand, 11 wins with only 2 losses. Currently, they have Gokhan Saricam as the minus 155 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Tanner Boser sitting at plus 135. Boys, this is a crazy fight. I honestly didn't know that Tanner Boser or Gokhan Saricam was in the UFC at all. I didn't know Tanner Boser was still in the UFC, and I didn't know Saricam was ever hired by the UFC. In fact, I looked at Tanner Boser's record just now, and this guy had a fight outside the UFC, so he was cut from the UFC, and now he's being brought back because he's Canadian and they need Canadian fighters, much like I feel like they did with Julien LeBlanc. So it's extremely weird, this fight. Horrible fight. I mean, Gokhan Saricam, he's never been in the UFC. He gets his shot here. I actually bet on him before in Bellator back in the day. I think it was against Daniel James or someone like that. Maybe Saeed Soma. He's a decent fighter. You know, I think he's probably low-level UFC fighter. You know, Marcin Tybura just fought Tyrell Fortune, you know, around that ilk, maybe a little bit lower level. He's a decent striker, you know, he has some good in and out movement, some good hands. He can also go to the wrestling. You know, I've seen him take people down before, control them, win fights like that, which is going to be very good, coming in handy against someone like Tanner Boser, who is not a good wrestler. He's going to want it to stay on the feet. You know, Tanner Boser has very good leg kicks and fast hands in the pocket. Outside of that, honestly, man, he doesn't really have too much to offer. He can blitz in fast. He can throw multiple hooks. He's quite fast for a heavyweight because he's more of a light heavyweight. I don't really think he should be. At heavyweight, he's too small, but that means he has speed. And as I mentioned, the leg kicks are pretty good as well. But outside of that, I feel like Saricam has him covered to some degree. You know, he's probably going to be able to get top time and takedowns here. And then outside of that, he's probably got the better hands. I don't know about that. I mean, I'll have to really think about that one. But I feel like he's a decent striker himself, and he's probably better than Tanner Boser all round. But at the end of the day, it's his UFC debut. Tanner Boser's been here before, has much better wins, has much better experience than him, has fought better fighters, is in his hometown in a fight that I honestly feel like is going to go to decision at heavyweight. So we might see the rub of the judges go to Tanner Boser's way. So it's not really a lovely bet you want to jump in at minus 155 on a fighter that isn't high level, that has less experience, that hasn't fought the guys even half as good as people that Tanner has fought, like Ion Cutelaba and Cyril Gane. So maybe it's just a pass on the money line. But I do think Saricam stylistically is just better and is just going to win the fight. So I will pick Saricam to win. I'll actually pick him to win via decision. Next up, we have women's MMA action. JJ Aldridge is taking on Jamey-Lyn Horf. Aldridge coming into this fight, 14 wins, 7 loss record. Jamey-Lyn Horf, on the other hand, a lot younger in the game, 9 wins with 2 losses. Jamey-Lyn Horf sitting as a fairly steep -210 favorite, with the underdog price tag on JJ Aldridge sitting at +180. Yeah, very weird fight, boys. I honestly don't know what to make of Jamey-Lyn Horf. I feel like we might need to pump the brakes on her a little bit. You know, obviously she got a big win last time out against Teresa Bleda. She finished her in round 1. But I think Teresa Bleda came into that fight extremely compromised. Bleda had a bad infection that almost stopped her fighting MMA completely before that fight. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. There's a reason why I didn't bet on that fight, or I didn't bet on Teresa Bleda. In hindsight, I should have bet on Horf, but I didn't know how much it would affect her. I personally, seeing that fight, think it affected her massively. And then she's had some weird ones. You know, like the Haley Cowan fight, I don't think that was a great performance. The Petrovic fight, I don't think that was a great performance. Miranda Maverick fight was one of her best performances, even though she lost. You know, she looked good in that fight. Obviously, Bleda was her best. The Mopolis fight was a layup. She was -600. She couldn't get the finish. I thought she was going to. Kind of a bad sign she couldn't get the finish, but not really, because Vanessa's so tough. So I just don't really know what to make of her. I know what to make of JJ Aldridge. I know what to make of her for the last 5 years. She's the same fighter she's always been. Very, very hard to take down. Good center of gravity, good balance, great 1-2, great jab, great feel for, how can I put it? Not for striking overall, because she will get eaten up by like a diverse striker like Ariane Lipski, but she has a great feel for striking when she's striking a wrestler. You know, she's able to keep range. Good boxing, you know, just like good 1-2, good typical boxing, very good basic striking. I think that's what I mean to say, like, extremely good basics. Like, she has a good high guard, she has a good 1-2, she has a good jab. She can win a fight just with a jab, like she did against Gillian Robertson to some degree. She's good range control. She never overextends. You never see her throwing strikes that are wild and miss. So she's good. If you get a versatile striker, she can eat her up. You know, if you get someone who's really good wrestler, obviously she can be taken down. And yeah, that's what we know about JJ Aldridge. I feel like this fight is going to be close. I don't know why JJ Aldridge is such a big underdog. I mean, I don't think Horf's going to go there and take her down. JJ could take her down. JJ has very good timing on her takedowns, and Horf has been taken down by any girl that's wanted to some degree, outside of Teresa Bleda. I will say Horf is also very, very strong and physical, and the more physical girl here. And maybe she's improving, so maybe she could stuff the takedowns. I don't think the takedowns are going to be like a big plan. I actually think JJ's going to stand on the feet. But I'm saying if Horse is rushing in, trying to close distance because she's getting out jabbed, which I see, then I could definitely see JJ ducking under, getting a takedown just to secure the round or something like that. And then on the feet, I think it's going to be close. Horse's going to throw more kicks. JJ's probably going to be outclassing her to some degree with the jab and pinging her head back there with the 1-2. So yeah, I just think it's a close fight. Horf, if she really makes it gritty and gets in the clinch, she could butcher JJ. I do believe that. I think she's a very good clinch fighter, strong there as well. But JJ's strong herself. You know, she could potentially hold her in the clinch and step back, but I definitely favor Jamie, like I said. So it's a very close fight. As you can see, I'm going back and forth. I'm trying to see where Jamey-Lyn Horf is -210, and I can't really see it. I don't think it's cardio. I don't think it's toughness. Maybe physicality, maybe. But, I mean, there's lots of other areas in the fight which she isn't a -210. So, you know, that alone being -210 doesn't really mean her money line should be -210, if that makes sense. If she has a big advantage in physicality, but everything else is close, then she shouldn't be a big favorite. She hits harder, so like power, yes. I think she has a lot more power and probably more finishing upside here. So, you know, I understand putting her as a favorite to some degree, but -210 is way too wide for me. I'll pick JJ Aldridge because I'm a sports bettor. And unless it's a -700 and I'm picking against them, I'm not going to pick the favorite outright, or I'm betting against them, I'm not going to pick the favorite outright. So yeah, JJ Aldridge to get this one via decision as another underdog is my pick. All right, that's it, boys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you click the like button, the subscribe button. The link is in the bio if you want to find out more, etc., etc. Hopefully we cash, boys. Good luck to every single person watching this video. Peace and love. See you in the next one.